February 10th, 2026, 3:47 a.m., Eastern Ukraine. The Russian defensive line fortified for 18 months, reinforced with concrete bunkers, anti-tank ditches, and layered minefields, shatters in under 6 hours. By sunrise, Ukrainian mechanized units are 5 kilometers deep into territory Moscow swore would never fall. For the past 14 months, this sector of the front has been frozen solid. We were talking about the Svatove-Kreminna axis in Luhansk Oblast, critical junction that connects Russian supply lines running south from Belgorod all the way down to occupied Donetsk. Lose this, and Moscow's entire logistical backbone in eastern Ukraine starts to fracture. The Russians know it. The Ukrainians know it. And for over a year, both sides have been locked in a brutal stalemate, trading artillery fire, probing attacks, and drone strikes, but no major movement. The line holds. Until now. Intelligence reports from mid-January start showing something unusual. Ukrainian reconnaissance drones, specifically the Turkish-made Bayraktar TB2S and newer domestically produced Wixhawk units, begin saturating the skies over Russian positions. We're talking hundreds of sorties, thermal imaging, signal intercepts, mapping every trench, every ammunition depot, every command post. Meanwhile, on the ground, Ukrainian engineers are quietly shifting equipment forward. M88 recovery vehicles, Leopard 2A6 main battle tanks, American-supplied M2 Bradley infantry fighting vehicles, HIMARS launchers repositioning under cover of darkness. The Russians see the build-up. They're not blind. But here's the problem. They're stretched thin. Moscow has been hemorrhaging manpower for months. Frontline units are under strength, rotations are overdue, and morale is fractured. Intelligence estimates put Russian forces in this sector at roughly 65% combat effectiveness. They have the fortifications, they have the mines. But they don't have enough bodies to hold the line if Ukraine hits hard and fast. And that's exactly what Kyiv is planning. February 10th, 2026, 3:47 a.m. The attack begins not with tanks, but with silence. Ukrainian electronic warfare units using Americans supplied an MLQ-56. Systems jam Russian communications across a 15-kilometer front. Radios go dead. Encrypted frequencies scramble. Command posts lose contact with forward positions. In modern warfare, this is the equivalent of cutting the enemy's nervous system. Simultaneously, Ukrainian cyber units launch coordinated attacks on Russian military networks. GPS-guided artillery systems malfunction. Drone operators lose satellite links. It's chaos before a single shot is fired. Then, at exactly 4 a.m., the artillery opens up. We were talking about a rolling barrage tactic perfected in World War I, executed here with 21st century precision. Ukrainian M777 howitzers, French Caesar self-propelled guns, and Polish Crab systems unleash a coordinated strike on pre-mapped Russian positions.
Ow!
Over 1,200 shells in the first 30 minutes alone.
Ow.
But this isn't random bombardment. Ukrainian forward observers embedded deep in no man's land for weeks are calling in fire missions with pinpoint accuracy. Ammunition bunkers explode in secondary blasts. Command posts collapse. Communication trenches cave in. At 4:22 a.m., the drone swarms arrive. Ukraine deploys over 300 small quadcopter drones, commercial DJI units modified to drop anti-personnel grenades and thermite munitions. They descend on Russian trenches like a plague of steel locusts. Soldiers scramble for cover. Some never make it. This is combined arms warfare at its most brutal. And the Russians are reeling. 6:15 a.m. With Russian defenses softened, Ukrainian mechanized infantry moves in. Leading the assault are 12 Leopard 2A6 tanks German-made. 62 tons of armor and firepower, equipped with advanced thermal sights and the L-55 120mm smoothbore cannon. Behind them, M2 Bradley fighting vehicles carrying dismounted infantry. This is textbook combined arms. Tanks suppress, infantry clears. The first obstacle is the minefield. Ukrainian engineers deploy M58 Miklik mine-clearing line charges. These are essentially rocket-propelled explosives that detonate across a 100-meter path, clearing lanes through the mines. It's loud, it's violent, and it works. Leopards roll through the cleared lanes. Their cannons engaging Russian T-7 to B-3 tanks dug into defensive positions. The engagements are brutal and close, sometimes under 800 meters. Ukrainian thermal sights give them the edge. Russian tanks, many of them outdated and poorly maintained, are outmatched. By 6:45 a.m., the first line of Russian defenses is breached. Ukrainian infantry, armed with NATO standard rifles, anti-tank missiles, and body armor, move into the trench systems. Close quarters combat erupts. Grenades, small arms fire, controlled chaos. But here's the critical part. The Ukrainians don't stop to consolidate. They keep pushing. This is deliberate. Modern doctrine emphasizes momentum. Once you breach a defensive line, you exploit it before the enemy can regroup. Ukrainian commanders know this. They push their units forward relentlessly. 12:30 p.m., by midday, Russian forces are in full retreat. Intelligence intercepts reveal panic in Russian command channels. The units are abandoning positions. Officers are requesting permission to withdraw. Some don't wait for permission, they just leave. Why the collapse? Several factors. First, Russian reinforcements can't get through. Ukrainian HIMARS strikes have destroyed key bridges and rail junctions. The roads leading to the front are cratered and impassable. Russian units that should be counterattacking are stuck 20 kilometers back. Second, morale is shattered. These Russian soldiers have been holding this line for over a year. They're exhausted, underpaid, poorly supplied, and now they're watching their defenses get torn apart by precision strikes and superior equipment. Some surrender, others flee. Third, and this is crucial, Ukrainian forces are bypassing strong points. Instead of getting bogged down in protracted sieges, Ukrainian commanders identify and isolate Russian positions that are still holding out. They leave small blocking forces to contain them and push the main assault columns deeper. It's a maneuver warfare principle. Attack weakness, avoid strength. By 3 p.m., Ukrainian forces are 5 kilometers behind the original Russian front line. They've captured 3 strategic villages, overrun 2 battalion command posts, and seized an ammunition depot containing over 40 tons of artillery shells and rockets. More importantly, they've cut the main supply road connecting Russian forces in Kreminna to their logistics hubs in the north. Moscow has a crisis on its hands. February 11, 2026. Here's what should have happened. Russian reserves launch a massive counterattack to seal the breach and push Ukrainian forces back. Here's what actually happened. Nothing. Why? Russian military doctrine relies heavily on centralized command and control. Decisions get made at the top and filter down. But Ukrainian electronic warfare and cyber attacks have severed those communication lines. Regional commanders can't get clear orders from Moscow. Some are afraid to act without authorization. Others don't have the resources. Meanwhile, Ukrainian forces consolidate their gains. Engineers move in to fortify captured positions. Anti-tank obstacles are in place. Minefields are laid. Artillery units repositioned to provide fire support. By the afternoon, Ukrainian drones spot Russian armored columns attempting to move south for a counterattack. HIMARS launchers positioned 15 kilometers behind the front line immediately engage. Precision-guided M31 rockets rain down on the Russian convoy. Tanks burn, ammunition trucks explode, counterattack dissolves before it even begins. This is the nightmare scenario for any military. Your forces are being destroyed faster than you can reinforce them. February 12th. While the fighting rages on the ground, another battle unfolds online. Russian state media initially downplays the breakthrough. They call it a minor incursion that's been contained. But Ukrainian channels are flooding social media with drone footage, Russian positions in flames. Captured equipment, prisoners being led away. Western intelligence agencies corroborate Ukraine's claims. Satellite imagery shows the extent of the breach. Independent analysts confirm the loss of strategic villages. Moscow can't hide it anymore. By evening, Russian military bloggers, usually pro-Kremlin, are openly criticizing command failures. Where are our reinforcements? One popular channel demands. How did our defenses collapse so fast? The Kremlin scrambles to control the narrative. Defense Ministry officials promise a decisive response. But the damage is done. Public confidence in Russia's military leadership takes another hit. And it gets worse for Moscow. Ukrainian forces don't just hold their gains, they expand them. Over the next 5 days, Kyiv commits additional reserves. More mechanized brigades, more artillery, more drones. They widened the breach from 15 kilometers to nearly 30. Russian forces are pushed back, fragmented, isolated. By February 15th, Ukrainian units are threatening Kreminna itself, a critical logistics hub that Russia has held since early 2022. If Kreminna falls, the entire Russian defensive structure in Luhansk begins to unravel. Russian forces attempt piecemeal counterattacks, unsucceed. Ukrainian air defense NASAMS and German-supplied IRIS-D systems shoot down Russian helicopters attempting close air support. Ukrainian artillery pounds Russian assembly areas before they can organize coordinated assaults. Moscow is losing this fight. February 20th. In Moscow, the knives come out. Russian military bloggers and nationalist commentators openly blame specific generals for the disaster. Names are named.
Accusations fly.
The Ministry of Defense issues vague statements about ongoing investigations into tactical failures. But the real question isn't about individual commanders. It's systemic. Russia's military is suffering from manpower shortages. Mobilization efforts have failed to produce enough combat-ready troops. Equipment losses. Over 2 years of war have depleted tank reserves, artillery stockpiles, and ammunition supplies. Logistical breakdown, corruption, mismanagement, and Ukrainian strikes have crippled supply lines. Morale collapse. Soldiers don't believe in the mission anymore. Ukrainian President Zelensky addresses the nation. He's measured but firm. This victory belongs to our soldiers, he says. But this war is not over. We will continue to fight until every kilometer of our land is free. Western allies respond with cautious optimism. The United States announces another military aid package, $2.3 billion in artillery shells, air defense missiles, and armored vehicles. The European Union pledges continued support. But there's a darker undercurrent. As Ukrainian forces advance, analysts begin asking the unthinkable. What if Russia escalates? Moscow has hinted at nuclear options before. Russian doctrine allows for tactical nuclear weapon use if the state faces an existential threat. Does a major battlefield defeat qualify? Most experts say no. Using tactical nukes would trigger massive Western retaliation. NATO might not intervene militarily, but economic and diplomatic consequences would be catastrophic. Shatter Russian alliances. China and India both, hedging their support for Moscow, would likely distance themselves. Achieve limited military value. Tactical nukes are devastating, but Ukrainian forces are dispersed and mobile. Radiation fallout would also contaminate Russian-held territory. Still, the risk isn't zero. Western intelligence agencies monitor Russian nuclear forces closely. So far, no signs of increased readiness, no movement of warheads, no unusual communications. But the world watches nervously. Late February, the rapid exploitation phase slows. Ukrainian forces are now facing the same problem every successful offensive encounters. Extended supply lines, exhausted troops, stiffening resistance. Russia, despite its losses, still has depth. It pulls units from other sectors, drafts more conscripts, it fortifies fallback positions. The fighting becomes attritional again. Villages change hands. Artillery duels resume. Casualties mount on both sides. But strategically, the damage is done. Ukraine has shattered the myth of Russia's impregnable defenses. It's proven that well-trained, well-equipped forces using NATO tactics can break through even heavily fortified lines. And it's forced Moscow to confront a brutal reality. This war is not going the way the Kremlin promised. So where does this go? Will Russia collapse entirely, or will it stabilize the line and grind this war into another year of stalemate? Can Ukraine sustain offensive operations, or will exhaustion and ammunition shortages force a pause? And most importantly, will the West continue providing the weapons, intelligence, and support that made this breakthrough possible? Because here's the truth. This war isn't just being fought in the trenches of eastern Ukraine. It's being fought in the halls of Congress, the corridors of Brussels, and the manufacturing plants producing artillery shells. Ukraine proved it can win battles. But winning the war? That's a different question entirely. What do you think happens next? Will Russia regroup and counterattack? Or is this the beginning of the end? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you want more in-depth military analysis like this, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because this story is far from over.